I used to think cheating was something that happened to other people. The kind of story you hear online, shake your head at, and tell yourself, that could never be me. I trusted my girlfriend completely. Not because I was naive, but because I had no reason not to. Her name was Ananya. We didn't meet in some dramatic way, no movie moment, no instant fireworks. We met at a cafe on a crowded evening when every table was taken, and she asked if she could sit across from me. We talked about nothing important: work, traffic, bad coffee, and somehow that turned into hours. I remember noticing how easily she laughed, how comfortable the silence felt between us. By the end of that night, I didn't think, this is the woman I'll love. I just thought, I hope I see her again. 3 years later, she was living in my apartment. 3 years of shared routines, shared groceries, shared passwords, shared plans about the future that felt solid and real. We weren't perfect, but we were stable, and that stability made me feel safe. Every morning, she'd steal my pillow and complain that I moved too much in my sleep. Every night, she'd rest her head on my chest and say, I feel safe with you. I believed her. I believed her because nothing about her behavior screamed danger. She wasn't hiding her phone. She wasn't distant. She didn't suddenly change her clothes or her routine. That's the part nobody talks about. Cheating doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it blends in so well that you don't even notice it's happening. Our life was boring in the best way. Work, dinner, TV, sleep. Weekends spent doing errands, arguing over what to watch, planning trips we never seemed to take. I loved that life. I loved knowing what my days looked like. I loved the predictability of us. Then one Tuesday, an ordinary, forgettable Tuesday, she came home late. Not suspicious late, not the kind that sets off alarms, just later than usual. She said work ran over. I nodded, didn't question it. But when she kissed me hello, something felt absent, not wrong, just distracted. Her mind was somewhere else. I told myself I was overthinking. That's what people like me do. We explain things away because we don't want to become the jealous, insecure partner. I didn't want to be that guy. Later that night, while we were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and casually turned it face down. That was it. That was the entire moment. No panic. No secrecy. Just a small, meaningless gesture. And I ignored it. That's how it starts, not with proof, but with moments you choose not to question. Over the next few weeks, nothing obvious changed. If anything, she seemed happier, lighter. She smiled at her phone more often, not hiding it, just smiling in a way that made it feel like she was reading something personal. She laughed at jokes I didn't hear. When I asked what was funny, she'd say, just work stuff. I believed her. What I didn't know was that she had started talking to someone from her office. A guy named Rohit. At first, it was harmless, complaining about deadlines, bosses, stress. The kind of conversations that feel innocent when you're lonely during the day. But conversations have weight. And when you keep sharing them with the same person, they start to matter. I felt the distance before I understood it. She was physically present but emotionally elsewhere. When I spoke, she listened but not deeply. When I touched her, she responded but mechanically. Something subtle was shifting and I couldn't name it. One night she fell asleep early. That rarely happened. Her phone was charging on the bedside table. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was just lying there staring at the ceiling when the screen lit up. A notification. A name I didn't recognize. And a message preview that hit me like a quiet punch to the chest. I miss you already. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. Everything just slowed down. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, long enough for my brain to try and build excuses, long enough to wonder if it could mean something else, long enough to feel that tightness settle in my chest, not panic, but something colder. Then the screen went dark. I didn't wake her up. I didn't check the phone. I didn't do anything. I lay there beside her, listening to her breathing, asking myself the same question over and over again. Do I want to know? Because once you know, everything changes. You don't get to go back to ignorance. You don't get to pretend anymore. I chose to wait. That decision felt mature at the time. It would haunt me later. After that night, she became perfect. More affectionate, more attentive. She cooked my favorite meals without me asking. She hugged me longer. She said, I love you more often. That's how I understand it now. Guilt makes people kinder. Every time she smiled at me, a small voice in my head whispered that something wasn't right, but I ignored it because I wanted to believe the version of her I loved. One evening I asked casually, like it didn't matter whose Rohit. She didn't pause. She didn't hesitate. She didn't stumble. Oh, him, just someone from work. Too smooth. Too easy. I smiled and nodded. On the outside, everything was normal. On the inside, something shifted permanently, because at that moment I realized something terrifying. She had already practiced that lie. What I didn't know yet was that she had already crossed a line, not physically, not yet, but emotionally she was already leaning on someone else, sharing parts of herself that used to be mine, laughing in ways she no longer laughed with me. And while I was lying next to her every night believing we were still the same, she was slowly building a second world where I didn't exist. I just hadn't seen it yet. After that night, nothing felt the same, even though everything looked exactly the same. We still ate dinner together. Still slept in the same bed. Still laughed at the same shows. But now every small moment carried weight. When her phone buzzed, I noticed. When she smiled at the screen, I noticed. When she typed with her phone angled away from me, I noticed. And the worst part was, she noticed me noticing. She became careful, not defensive, careful. She'd reply to messages slower when I was around. She'd put her phone down more often. She learned how to look normal again. That's when I understood something important. Whatever was happening, it wasn't accidental anymore. One night, while brushing her teeth, she left her phone on the bed, face up, unlocked. The room was quiet except for the sound of running water in the bathroom. I stared at it. I remember thinking, if I don't check now, I never will. My hand felt heavy when I picked it up, not shaking, just heavy, like it already knew what it was about to find. I didn't dig. I didn't scroll months back. I didn't search. The messages were already open. Her chat with Rohit. The first thing that hit me wasn't romance. It was familiarity. Inside jokes. Late night conversations. Long paragraphs. Things she used to share with me. I scrolled slowly, my chest tightened with every message. I feel like I can be myself with you. I don't talk to anyone else like this. You understand me better than he does. That last one made my vision blur. She had typed my replacement sentence by sentence while lying next to me every night. I kept scrolling. No explicit photos. No graphic messages. Nothing that would make her look obviously guilty. And that somehow made it worse. Because this wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. She came out of the bathroom while I was still holding the phone. Her smile disappeared instantly. "What are you doing?" she asked, calm but sharp. I looked at her and asked the simplest question I could think of. "How long?" She didn't ask how much I saw. She didn't ask what I read. She sighed. That sigh told me everything. "It's not what you think," she said. That sentence should come with a warning label, because it's always followed by lies. She sat down beside me and started explaining, carefully, softly, like she was afraid of saying the wrong thing. She said they were just talking. That he understood her work stress. That I'd been distant lately. That one hurt. Because I hadn't gone anywhere. She said it wasn't cheating because nothing physical had happened, that she never touched him, that it didn't mean anything. I asked her, then why hide it? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, because I knew you react like this. I almost laughed. Somehow, I was being blamed for discovering the truth. She promised she'd stop talking to him, she swore it was over. She cried just enough to seem sincere but not enough to seem guilty. And I wanted to believe her. Because believing her meant I didn't have to destroy the life I'd built. So I said we'd work through it. That night she held me tighter than she had in weeks. I stared at the ceiling and realized something terrifying. Trust doesn't disappear loudly. It leaks. The next few days felt calm, too calm. She left her phone around again, she showed me messages, she laughed more with me. On the surface, everything looked fixed. But my gut didn't relax. Because once your brain sees the pattern, it never stops seeing it. One evening, while she was cooking, her phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it. Unknown contact. No name. Just a number. The message preview said, Miss you, today was hard without you. My chest went cold. When I asked her about it, she didn't deny it. She said, I told you I'd stop, I didn't say he would. That sentence rewired something in me. She wasn't confused. She wasn't conflicted. She was negotiating. She said she didn't want to lose me, but she didn't want to lose him either, that she felt torn, that she didn't mean for it to go this far. I asked her if she loved him. She said, I don't know. That was worse than a yes. Because love doesn't start with certainty, it starts with hesitation. That night she slept peacefully. I didn't sleep at all. I lay there realizing that the woman beside me was emotionally invested in someone else, and still expected me to stay. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye like everything was normal. And I understood something clearly for the first time. She wasn't cheating by accident anymore. She was choosing him. She just hadn't chosen to leave yet. And that's where the real damage begins. After that conversation, I stopped arguing. Not because I was okay with what was happening, but because I realized something important. Every time I tried to explain how hurt I was, she heard it as pressure, and pressure made her retreat further into him. So I went quiet. I became observant. I watched how she moved through the apartment, how she picked up her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, how she smiled differently when certain messages came in, how her energy shifted whenever she mentioned work. She started staying late more often, not dramatically late, just enough to sound believable. Meetings, deadlines, team dinners, all the usual excuses people use when they want time without questions. And I let her go. That's the part people don't understand. I didn't chase her, I didn't beg, I didn't demand access to her phone or her location. I gave her space because space reveals truth faster than confrontation ever does. One evening, she told me she was going out with coworkers. She even named a few people I recognized. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door like nothing was wrong. The apartment felt heavier the moment she left. I sat on the couch staring at nothing when something occurred to me, something small but sharp. Her location sharing was still on. She'd never turned it off because she never thought she'd need to. I didn't open it right away. I waited. I wanted to be sure I wasn't imagining things, but after an hour passed, curiosity outweighed denial. Her location wasn't at a restaurant. It wasn't near her office. It was across town in a residential area. I zoomed in. An apartment complex. Not a bar. Not a cafe. Someone's home. My chest tightened again, but this time it felt different, not panic, not shock. Confirmation. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I just watched the dot stay still. 2 hours passed. Then 3. She finally came home late that night, acting tired, complaining about work, talking too much, like someone trying to fill silence before it asks questions. I didn't say anything. I asked myself one thing instead. How long has this been happening? The next few days confirmed what my instincts already knew. Her stories stopped lining up. Times changed, details shifted. She forgot which lies she'd told me. And when people start forgetting their lies, it means they're telling too many. One night while she was asleep, her phone buzzed again. I didn't hesitate this time. The message was short. Same place tomorrow. I stared at it for a long time. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was logistics. I scrolled further up. They'd been meeting regularly, always when she said she was working late, always at the same location, always followed by messages like I needed that and I wish we didn't have to hide. I felt something inside me go quiet. Not numb. Focused. The next day she told me she'd be late again. I nodded and said okay. Then I followed her. I stayed far enough back that she didn't notice. She walked confidently, not like someone unsure of their choices. She didn't look over her shoulder. She didn't hesitate before entering the building. She knew exactly where she was going. I waited. And then I saw him. Rohit. I recognized him immediately from photos she'd shown me months ago when she talked about her office. He smiled when he saw her, the kind of smile you don't give to coworkers. They hugged. Not casually. Comfortably. Like this wasn't new. I didn't approach them, I didn't interrupt, I didn't confront. I watched them walk inside together. And in that moment, something very clear settled in my mind. She wasn't confused. She wasn't trapped. She wasn't being manipulated. She was making decisions. Every single day. When she came home later that night, she kissed me the same way she always did. She asked how my day was. She laughed at my answers. And I looked at her and realized how easy it was for her to lie. Not because she was cruel, but because she had already justified it to herself. That's when I understood the most dangerous part of cheating. It's not the betrayal. It's the normalization. Once someone convinces themselves that what they're doing is okay, they stop seeing you as someone they're hurting. You become an obstacle, a problem to manage, a story to rewrite. That night while she slept, I packed a small bag. Not to leave. Not yet. Just in case. Because deep down I knew this wasn't heading toward reconciliation. It was heading toward something breaking. And soon, one of us was going to be forced to choose. I didn't confront her immediately. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to be absolutely certain of one thing. I wanted to see how far she was willing to lie. The next few days felt unreal. I watched her move through our shared life like an actress who knew her lines too well. She laughed at the right moments. She complained about work. She asked me what I wanted for dinner. And every night she still slept beside me. There's something deeply unsettling about lying next to someone who knows the truth about you while you pretend nothing is wrong. It creates a kind of emotional dissonance that messes with your sense of reality. You start wondering if you're the crazy one for feeling hurt when everything looks normal on the surface. I waited for the right moment. Not when she was tired. Not when she was distracted. Not when she could escape the conversation. One evening after dinner, when the apartment was quiet and the TV was off, I finally spoke. "Are you seeing him?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I didn't add emotion. She froze. Not dramatically, just long enough for the truth to try and decide what form it wanted to take. Then she sighed. "Again." "I told you," she said, "nothing is happening." I nodded slowly and asked, "Then why are you going to his apartment?" Her face changed. That was the moment. The mask didn't fall off, it cracked. She asked how I knew. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The fact that I did know was already enough. She stood up and started packing, running her hands through her hair, saying things like, "You're invading my privacy, and you don't trust me, and this is why I didn't tell you." Classic deflection. Somehow, the conversation turned into me being the problem. I stayed quiet and let her talk. Because when people are lying, they reveal more when they feel threatened. Eventually, she stopped packing and sat down across from me. Her voice softened. She said she felt lonely when I wasn't emotionally available, that she felt unseen, that Rohit listened to her in ways I didn't anymore. I asked her, "Did you sleep with him?" She shook her head quickly. "No." Too quickly. I asked again, slower. "Did you sleep with him?" She hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than a yes would have. She said, "Not at first." There it was. The partial confession, the most manipulative kind of honesty, just enough truth to seem sincere, not enough to take full responsibility. She told me it just happened, that she never planned for it to go that far, that it only happened once, that it didn't mean anything. She cried. Real tears. And that's the part that confused me the most, because she looked genuinely upset. Not about what she did, but about the consequences catching up to her. I asked her why she kept coming home to me afterward. She said she didn't want to lose me. I asked her why she kept going back to him. She said she didn't know how to stop. That answer told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't choosing between us. She was trying to keep both. She said she needed time to think, that she was overwhelmed, that I was pushing her too hard. I almost laughed. Because apparently asking for basic honesty was now considered pressure. That night she slept on the couch. I lay alone in the bed we used to share, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past few months in my head. Every late night, every smile at her phone, every time I doubted myself and chose silence instead. I realized something important in that quiet. The relationship I was fighting for no longer existed. I wasn't trying to save us. I was trying to save a memory. The next morning, she acted distant but polite, like roommates, like strangers trying not to bump into each other. She said she was going to work and left without kissing me. Hours later, my phone buzzed. A message from her. "I'm with him, I need space, please don't do anything stupid." That message broke whatever restraint I had left. Not because she was with him, but because she expected me to understand. To wait. To stay loyal while she explored her options. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. I finally saw the situation clearly. She wasn't confused. She wasn't lost. She had already made her choice. She just wanted me to stay available in case it didn't work out. And I knew then, the next thing I did would define how this story ended. After that message, I didn't reply. Not immediately. Not emotionally. Not at all. I sat there for a long time holding my phone, realizing that for the first time since this started, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't trying to fix anything. I wasn't asking questions I already knew the answers to. Something had shifted. The pain was still there, but it was quieter now, more controlled, like it had burned through the part of me that needed explanations. I finally typed back one sentence. "Take all the space you need." I didn't add anything else. No anger. No sadness. No conditions. She didn't respond for hours. And that silence told me something important. She had expected resistance. She had expected questions. She had expected me to fight for her. Instead, I disappeared emotionally. That's when people who are cheating start to panic, not when you scream, but when you stop caring. She came home late that night, not with confidence this time, with hesitation, like someone entering a room where the rules might have changed. She asked if we could talk. I said sure. She told me she was confused, that she felt pulled in two directions, that she needed time to figure out what she wanted. I listened without interrupting. Then I said something she wasn't prepared for. "I'm not waiting." She looked at me like she hadn't heard correctly. I told her I wasn't going to compete for someone who had already stepped out of the relationship, that I wasn't going to monitor her phone or track her location or beg her to choose me. I said calmly, "If you want to be with him, that's your decision, but you don't get to keep me as a backup." She started crying again. But this time I didn't move. I didn't hug her. I didn't reassure her. I didn't soften the moment. Because comfort in that situation would have been permission. She asked if I was breaking up with her. I told her the truth. "I don't know yet, but I know I'm done pretending everything is okay." That night I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I was happy, but because I finally stopped fighting reality. Over the next few days, I began pulling back in small ways. I stopped checking in. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped adjusting my schedule around hers. And she noticed. She asked why I was so distant. I told her I was protecting myself. That answer frustrated her more than anger ever could have. She wanted me emotional, reactive, available. Instead, I was calm. One evening, she told me she was going to stay at a friend's place for a few days to clear her head. I nodded and said okay. No questions. No conditions. That's when her tone changed. She asked if I even cared anymore. And that question revealed the entire game. She didn't want to lose me, she wanted to control how she lost me. After she left, the apartment felt different. Lighter. Lonelier but honest. I packed up some of her things and put them in boxes, not dramatically, not angrily, just methodically, like someone accepting the end of a chapter. A few days later, she messaged me. She said things weren't as perfect with him as she thought they'd be, that reality felt different now that it wasn't secret, that she missed me. I read the message twice. Then I put my phone down. Because missing someone isn't the same as choosing them. I realized then that the hardest part of betrayal isn't losing the person. It's losing the version of yourself who believed they'd never do this to you. And I wasn't willing to lose myself again just to make her feel less guilty. I didn't block her. I didn't lash out. I just stopped engaging. And that silence, that calm, steady silence, did something no argument ever could. It forced her to face what she'd done, without me cushioning the fall. I didn't know how this story would end yet. But for the first time, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't afraid of it anymore. A week passed without hearing from her. Not a single message. Not a missed call. Nothing. At first, the silence felt heavy, like pressure building in a room with no windows, but slowly something unexpected happened. I started breathing again. I slept through the night. I ate without forcing myself. I caught myself laughing at things that had nothing to do with her. That scared me. Because healing feels suspicious when you're not used to it. Then one evening, just as I was getting ready to sleep, my phone buzzed. Her name. I stared at it longer than I should have. Long enough to feel the old reflex, the urge to answer immediately to prove I was still there. I didn't. The message came through anyway. I made a mistake. Those 3 words used to mean everything to me. Now they felt incomplete. She said she'd been thinking a lot, that things with him weren't what she imagined, that once the secrecy was gone, the excitement disappeared with it, that reality didn't feel special anymore. I noticed how carefully she avoided one detail. She didn't say she chose me. She said she was disappointed with him. There's a difference. She asked if we could meet and talk, said she needed closure, said she owed me an explanation. I agreed. Not because I wanted her back, but because I wanted to hear her say the truth out loud. We met at a quiet cafe, neutral ground, somewhere memories wouldn't interfere. She arrived early. I could tell by the way she kept looking at the door. When she saw me, she smiled, a familiar smile, the one that used to make everything feel okay. This time it didn't work. She looked different, tired, less certain, like someone who had finally realized that choices come with consequences. She started talking immediately, apologizing, explaining, rewriting the story in softer language. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she got caught up in feelings she didn't understand, that she was lost. I listened. Then I asked her one question. If I hadn't found out, would you have stopped? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Then quietly said, I don't know. That answer landed harder than anything else she'd said. She reached for my hand. I let her, but I didn't hold back. I didn't lean in. I just let her feel the distance. She told me she wanted to try again, that she'd cut contact with him, that she'd do anything to rebuild trust. I believed that she meant it. And that made the decision harder. Because sincerity doesn't erase damage. I told her the truth, that I didn't trust her anymore. That even if we tried again, every late night, every notification, every change in tone would reopen the wound. That love without trust becomes surveillance, and I didn't want to live like that. She cried quietly, not dramatically, not manipulatively. Just broken. She asked if there was anything she could do to fix it. I shook my head. Some things don't break loudly, I said, they wear down. She nodded like she understood, but I could tell she didn't fully. People who haven't lost trust don't realize it doesn't regenerate, it scars. We sat there in silence for a while. Then she asked if I hated her. I told her the truth again. No, I just don't choose you anymore. That sentence felt heavy leaving my mouth. But also right. When we stood up to leave, she hugged me, not tightly, not desperately, just long enough to say goodbye without words. I walked away without looking back. That night, I went home and removed her things from the apartment completely, not out of anger but out of respect for the ending. I needed my space to stop echoing with what used to be. As I lay in bed alone but steady, I realized something important. Closure doesn't come from the other person saying the right thing. It comes from finally believing yourself. And for the first time since this began, I did. The weeks after everything ended were quieter than I expected. No dramatic collapse. No sudden relief. Just silence. At first, that silence felt uncomfortable, like standing in an empty room after loud music stops. I kept expecting my phone to buzz, expecting her name to appear, expecting something to pull me back into the chaos I'd grown used to. But nothing came. And slowly that nothing became peaceful. I started noticing small things again, how the apartment felt when it was truly mine, how I could wake up without checking my phone first, how my thoughts no longer revolved around someone else's choices. There were still moments that hurt, random ones, songs we used to listen to, restaurants we'd planned to visit, certain jokes that no longer had anyone to land on. Healing isn't linear, it doesn't move forward in a straight line. Some days felt light, others felt heavy without warning. But the difference was, I wasn't confused anymore. I didn't question what happened. I didn't wonder if I imagined it. I didn't replay conversations hoping they'd mean something else. Clarity replaced obsession. I realized how much of myself I had slowly given away while trying to keep the relationship intact. How often I'd ignored my instincts because I didn't want to be that guy. How easily love can turn into self-abandonment if you're not careful. One evening, I ran into a mutual friend, someone who knew both of us. They hesitated before speaking, then told me something I hadn't asked for. She was struggling. Not in the dramatic way people expect, but quietly, regretfully. The excitement she chased had faded and reality had set in. The relationship she risked everything for didn't survive once it had to exist in the open. I felt something when I heard that. But it wasn't satisfaction. It was understanding. Because consequences don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive slowly and stay longer. I didn't reach out to her, not to comfort, not to explain, not to reopen doors that needed to stay closed. Some endings deserve distance. As time passed, I started trusting myself again, trusting my ability to notice patterns, trusting my instincts instead of arguing with them, trusting that walking away wasn't weakness, it was alignment. I learned that cheating isn't always about desire. Sometimes it's about escape. Sometimes it's about validation. Sometimes it's about someone who doesn't know how to sit with dissatisfaction without running from it. But none of that excuses the damage. Betrayal doesn't just break hearts, it rewires how you see people, how you listen, how you love. And that's why it matters how you respond to it. I didn't become bitter. I didn't become closed off. I didn't carry the weight forward. I carried the lesson. Love should feel safe. Communication should feel honest. And trust should never feel like a gamble. If someone makes you feel like you have to compete for their attention, you're already losing something important. Walking away didn't mean I stopped caring. It meant I started caring about myself. And that decision changed everything.